Welcome here to Edinburgh Pride. At this event, lots of government bodies who want to be neutral on controversial issues betray partiality. Here we've got the fire brigade with their rainbow flag. But worse is still to come. The Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service in Scotland, who decide who should be prosecuted and who shouldn't be. I mean, of all the arms of the government, this is the one that it is most crucial that they're seen as entirely unbiased. Now let's go and have a chat with them at Edinburgh Pride. So the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, what's the role of this?
It's the Scottish Public Prosecution Service. It's the equivalent of the English Crown Prosecution Service.
Right. My perception of that is that would be an arm of the government that is particularly important that it's seen as impartial and neutral.
Yeah, we're an independent arm of Scottish government, so we're wholly independent as regards prosecution of crime.
Right. Do you think your neutrality is compromised by aligning yourself with this event today?
Absolutely not. We're inclusive. We serve all the people of Scotland. We make no apologies for that.
I would love that were the case. So, for example, I've reported some issues to the police where I feel I've been the victim of a crime committed by LGBT activists.
Yeah.
So my fear is the fact that you're aligning yourself with LGBT activists, that leads me to think that you're not neutral.
I think you're conflating what we do. You've reported an incident to the police. It's up to
several,
and it's up to the police to investigate those incidents. And should they have enough evidence of a crime being committed, then they will report to us, and then we will decide what happens next to that criminal report. However, in our job, what we do is we look at whatever is presented to us from the police and then make a decision. But as regards victims, witnesses, accused persons or bereaved members of family, we are wholly independent and we are accessible and inclusive to all.
I actually understand that that's your aspiration.
No, it's not our aspiration. That's exactly what we do.
Okay, but do you see, from my point of view, that there's controversies in society?
Yeah.
I mean, for example, transgenderism, for example. So that's a controversial issue. I'm on one side. You're demonstrating allegiance to the other side.
We're not demonstrating any allegiance whatsoever. We're saying that our services are accessible to all.
So you're saying you're not demonstrating any allegiance?
We're saying that we are accessible to all people who need our services, and a lot of people don't choose to use our services. Circumstances necessitate that they have to come in contact with us, whether they be victims or witnesses or bereaved relatives.
I'll wind up very soon. I appreciate your time. So from my point of view, I fear that this indicates there's going to be some sort of bias against people like me. Now you're going to say, oh no, not at all. Is there anything you could...
You must remember that lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender, they're all protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010, and we as a public sector organisation are obliged to adhere to those three tenets of the public sector equality duty.
Yes.
We are accessible to all, and we avoid any sort of discrimination against whoever has to use our services.
But can you understand that when I'm someone, this flag represents lots of things that I disagree with?
Well, and that's your prerogative.
But you see why that makes me fear that you're not neutral? Can you point to anything that indicates your sympathy towards social conservatives? People who don't believe the ideology of transgenderism, people who think that homosexual relationships are immoral, people who don't agree with critical race theory. Can you point to anywhere where you've reached out to those people?
Just remember what our role is. We're the Public Prosecution Service for Scotland. So we take information from the police and we decide what happens next, irrespective of who you are or what your moral code is or what you believe or what you disbelieve in. That is not our concern as regards our public function.
I'm delighted to hear that, and I absolutely agree that that's your role.
Yeah.
But you not see that the perception is you're undermining your neutrality by aligning yourself with one side of a controversy. You don't see that at all?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, cheers.
So we have it. The lady from the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service stands by their stall festooned with pride flags, and she can't see how that undermines the perception of neutrality. I mean, where do you go from there? If someone can't see that, something that's so plain as the nose on your face, I really don't know where to go. Now, that's the perception. In reality, would I expect that this organisation is biased? To be honest, I probably would. I'm not saying I've got evidence of particular cases, but I would expect that this culture would come through in the decision making. I mean, how could it not? So I would expect that the perception of bias does translate into decisions made as well. You see that on the table as well. They've got a sign-up sheet for jobs alerts with the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service. So special treatment for gay people, LGBT people. Basically give them a special advantage to get jobs with them. I mean, is that even legal? But whether it's legal or not, it is certainly wrong. Right, let's have a quick look at some of the things at Pride today. A few people dressed up as furries, which is a sort of bizarre perversion. This enormous truck was parked right outside Edinburgh Central Mosque, and there were people on top of it giving speeches. Now, right outside the mosque, that's pretty... is provocative the right word? Possibly. I think Muslims have long since learned that in the hierarchy of oppression, they're not at the top. Okay, politicians like to pander to Muslims. They really like to do that. But when it comes to the crunch, if it's Muslim views, LGBT wins, and the Muslims are a lower priority. Yeah, so having that outside the mosque, I would say that seemed deliberate to me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Came across this little placard, "Bury the Equality and Human Rights Commission." Now, that'll be because transgender activists feel that the latest guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission following the Supreme Court judgment wasn't quite what they wanted. But that placard is beyond the boundaries of civility. The Equality and Human Rights Commission is a group of people, and you may disagree with them, as we often do, but we don't imply any sort of death wish while we disagree with them. Had a chat with the police. The police officers were not willing to be filmed, and I explained my point, and they seemed that the man I spoke to seemed to, he understood it. We were going along. He obviously couldn't completely contradict the whole of Police Scotland's policy, but he was very open to the reasoning I was presenting. I told him stories where I felt the police had failed to take action against LGBT activists who had committed crimes against me and against the Scottish Family Party more generally. And I also, he said the problem with the police, he said if you support one group, if you express special support for one group, another group might feel neglected. And I said to him, yes, absolutely, that's why you shouldn't try and single out groups. But this case is worse than that. This is not just saying we're going to focus on this group or have special support for this group. The police basically present the point that we agree with the LGBT group, therefore we disagree with people with different views. So that's worse than focusing on one to the detriment of another. It's stating partiality towards one, and you assume distaste, disfavour towards the others. Right, carrying on my wander around the stalls at Edinburgh Pride. St Augustine's Church, the institution that refers to itself as St Augustine's Church, LGBT transgender sort of fanatical church in the centre of Edinburgh. So I just went along and said, could I film a little interview with you? They said, who are you? I said, Scottish Family Party. I said, I'll be coming from a sort of sceptical point of view. And the man said, no, I wouldn't want to do anything to do with the Family Party. Definitely not, no. Okay, right, that's fine, off I went. Then I chatted to the police. Well, just when I was finishing chatting to the police, the organiser of the event came over. I've never seen anyone wearing so many lanyards. I think he had maybe 5 lanyards round his neck. And he took a very haughty manner, I would say, and he said to me, there's been a complaint about you. There's been a complaint about you, how you spoke to people. And it wasn't the Crown Office, because they were right next door at the time. It wasn't the police, because I'd only just spoken to them. So it must have been the man from St Augustine's Church. I mean, really pathetic. How feeble can you get? You just have a conversation with someone, and then they report you for being mean. I mean, this has happened to things before. This happened at the Scottish education conference thing. It wasn't me, it was another Family Party representative. People were being made uncomfortable. Just going around talking to people and asking questions. They're pretty delicate, some people. Anyway, so this organiser started arguing the case for the police being there and the Crown Office being there. And I said, well, but these are controversial issues. LGBT, people have different views on them. And he said, yes, people do have different views, but they're not controversial issues. Well, I said, well, if people take different views, I mean, that's the definition of controversial. Therefore, they're controversial. And then he said, but that's just your view. So I said, yeah, precisely. We have different views. That's what makes it controversial. But it wasn't going to happen, so we concluded that conversation. But also there in the hall with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the men who dress up ridiculously as mocking nuns, mocking Catholicism, mocking sexual purity, mocking sexual restraint, promoting sexual license, promoting sexual indulgence. And they serve as sort of chaplain figures to the LGBT movement, which says a lot. Now, the organizer in his conversation as well, they said to me, I hope you feel happy by being here. I hope it cheers you up. I said, well, no, it hasn't really. It makes me feel quite sad because I look around and see a lot of people I think are making choices that will not have positive outcomes for them in the longer term. And people for whom negative outcomes are already manifesting in their lives. And I feel to a very significant degree, that's why Pride has this spirit of like forced jollity, trying to put a brave face on it. These are good choices. This is working out just fine. Whereas I think underneath it, that is often not the case. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.